Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Hancock.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States as we look around the globe in 143 different nations, looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the products, and the services are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And we talk about all the major issues, the water, wastewater, education, health care, infrastructure, and of course transportation and renewable energy. And how we're going to move some 9 billion people by 2050 and to make it in a way that actually we increase the quality of life and do it in a way that's going to bring about a better quality of life and at the same time is to accommodate and feed, provide the fuel and the fiber that's needed for all these. And we have the media that's a part of all of this and what we call the green media. And we have a gentleman joining us by telephone, Jason Plaus, who is reporter of the E&E Publications. This is a online publications. They do also television, and they have E&E Daily, Greenwire, and 3 other major publications. And Jason is one of the lead reporters out of a pool of 52 that covers not only North America but also around the globe. Jason, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome. I'm glad you could come in by telephone today. And we were just talking about E&E Publications. Tell us a little bit about your organization, and then we're going to talk about some of the issues that you're actually covering through your green publications.
Sure. Well, Environment and Energy Publishing, we have 5 publications under our umbrella. That's Greenwire, Climate Wire, Energy Wire, E&E Daily, and E&E News PM. Those are all subscription-only publications covering everything from congressional action to administration action, business, and even international work on energy and environment issues.
Well, looking at what you're doing, it's very important that you're covering the policy. And as you know, this particular issue is about alternative fueled vehicles, environmental impacts, energy savings, public policy, and technology leadership. And it sounds like that through your 5 publications, and we should add, you also have your own TV channel, that you're really balancing all 4 of these main topics to really give information to opinion leaders not only here but also around the globe.
Yeah, that's correct. And you mentioned our TV network, E&E News or E&E TV, rather has interviews with interest groups, lobbyists, opinion leaders, administrators, a whole suite of people. And that's also available online. Everything's available at eenews.net.
Well, I know that this is very important because you're really reaching out to the globe, and by having it all online, there's really no barriers to that. So if someone's in Africa, Asia, South America, Europe, wherever they're located, they're actually able to go in through your website, your portals, and then be able to bring up all of these different publications. As you said, it is a subscription-only basis, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. We do have public stories available. If you go to eenews.net/public, you'll see about 5 to 7 stories a day available for free.
Well, we're going to bring up your photograph here so everybody see the handsome, intelligent gentleman that you are, if you don't mind, Jason. And then we'll put up some of your the logos that you have if we can bring this up. So anyway, looking at the why would investors want to invest in e-publications specifically about electric and other alternative fuel vehicles when this is really still an emerging market, even though the numbers are growing dramatically, and to learn more about that?
Yeah, well, you know, transportation is one of the leading sources of petroleum consumption right now, upwards of 70–75%. So looking at how to cut petroleum and oil consumption in the transportation sector is huge. Everybody's looking at that right now. And obviously, electric vehicles, alternative fuel vehicles are one of the most high-profile ways to do that. Electric vehicles, as you said, is still an emerging market. Still a lot of barriers to mainstreaming a lot of those vehicles. But it's something that governments, interest groups, a lot of people are paying attention to right now. And as we see more of these models roll off and roll into dealerships from almost all of the major automakers, it's something that's not going to go away.
Well, this is one of the things that's very important as far as alternative fueled vehicles and renewable energy. This is how the Emerald Planet started way back in 1973 with the first oil embargo about energy independence and conservation. And it sounds like as we move through the 21st century, these topics are first and foremost on the minds of just about every citizen around the globe.
Absolutely. Every time you see those gas prices tick up above, $3.50, $4 a gallon, you see a lot more interest in hybrid vehicles and now even electric vehicles. Now that there are some on dealership lots.
Well, looking at those particular vehicles, as far as the launch of the electric vehicles, what do you think is some of the most important issues that you're hearing from those that you're interviewing, and maybe responses from the audiences that you have as far as electric vehicles and actually alternative fueled vehicles?
Well, looking just at electric vehicles, I think a lot of people right now are just trying to figure out how do you make them go beyond the early adopters. There's a certain group of people who were going to buy electric vehicles no matter what. As soon as they were off the, on the market, they were going to go get one. And now what people are trying to do is figure out, okay, how do you reach the next group of consumers, the people who weren't necessarily excited about it before, but, want to save on gas, want to do something good for the environment, maybe just think it would be cool to drive an electric vehicle. So there's a lot of barriers out there right now. The vehicles are pretty expensive. They're more expensive than a lot of the comparable size vehicles on the market, both gas-powered and even hybrid-powered cars. And the big one right now is just the infrastructure out there. Obviously, if you're driving an electric vehicle, you have to have some place to charge it, and you got to charge it for a few hours. So it's figuring out, how do you get people charging stations in their homes, at the office, even out at the grocery store, at the mall, places where they're going to be and parked for a couple hours. There's still a lot of barriers to getting these out on the market, and people are just trying to figure out how do you get that cost down, and how do you make sure that people know that the infrastructure is out there? Because something that worries a lot of people is, they don't want to be driving and run out of power and just get stranded on the side of the road.
Well, one of the things I found very interesting, I was 15 days in Austria recently, and it was almost within a mile as far as the average mileage the Austrian drove to work or shopping and recreation and back as it is in the United States. So a lot of the barrier as far as the mileage is concerned, and this extension to be sure that people can get to work and back comfortably and not have to worry about it, is as much psychological as anything else.
Well, yeah, that's true. The average American, I believe the number is 37 miles a day, is driving 37 miles a day to and from work. And that's, if you look at the Chevy Volt, which is one of the leading electric models on the market right now, it has about 35 to 40 miles of electric charge for, on its battery life. So the average American fits well in there. But there is a psychological element to it, and there's a lot of, variability. This is, you're coming home from work and you realize you have to stop at the grocery store, and that's a trip you didn't plan on. So I think at this point, it's a lot of people just want to know that they have the security. If they want to go on a long weekend trip, they want to know that they're going to be able to make it there and make it back with the charge that they have.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as far as the infrastructure is really important. And looking at the issue as far as the federal government, even state and local governments, what do you see out there, Jason, in your reporting and the interviews that you've been doing for E&E publications that gives you comfort that actually the governments are really collaborating with the private sector in order to allow there to be a level playing field as being able to adopt the all-electrics, the hybrids, even the hydrogen fuel cells and others to come along and be a viable part of the mix of vehicles in the marketplace.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of, as I said, there's a lot of attention to this right now, and you're seeing a lot of it coming out of the White House. President Obama made a goal a few years ago. He said he wanted to have 1 million electric vehicles on the road by 2015. Now, whether that's realistic or not remains to be seen, but he certainly backed that up. The Department of Energy is just doing a ton of research and offering loans to automakers for advanced fuel vehicles and alternative vehicles. They're putting a lot of research in, especially on the battery. That's kind of the place everybody's looking at, is how do you get a battery that gets more power but doesn't weigh the vehicle down. Right now these batteries are pretty large and they're expensive. So the goal is, how do you get more power in less space for less money, which is something they're looking at a lot. The White House also offers a $7,500 tax credit for people buying these vehicles, so that knocks off. It certainly helps make the vehicles a little more affordable. Doesn't take them all the way down to the level of some of the cheaper cars on the market, but it certainly helps. And the administration actually proposed raising that $7,500 tax credit to $10,000 in their most recent budget. On the congressional side, less action out of Congress, although that, obviously they're not doing a whole lot there. There's certainly a lot of support there, and they actually did pass a bill just before recess that allows for the installation of electric vehicle chargers in House and Senate parking lots. So that's going to help. There's a few members of Congress who have electric vehicles. I'm sure more staff have them as well, and that's going to help, just kind of make it apparent that, this is something you can drive to the office, park, charge during the day, and head on home with it.
Okay, we're going to be losing you, Jason. We're about ready to close out here. Thank you, Jason Plouse, who is a reporter for E&E Publications and E&E Daily, Greenwire, and 3 other publications, plus E&E TV. And we certainly thank you for being with us as we talk about looking at the impact of alternative fuel vehicles, and we look around the globe to create the Emerald Planet.
Bin Laden calls getting nuclear weapons a religious duty.
Today, materials that can be used to make nuclear weapons are stored in more than 40 countries.
Sometimes protected by just a chain-link fence.
Yet not enough is being done to lock down these materials
before terrorists steal them.
Why did we learn all this?
My mother,
my son,
my sister-in-law
were all murdered September 11th.
Help protect America.
Together we can.
Please join us.
The stem cell issue is being debated throughout the country. Truth is, most everyone has an opinion, even if they don't know the facts.
Let's stop arguing and start really understanding the potential of stem cell research.
For us and for millions of Americans living with disabilities, get the facts.
Call 1-877-842-3442 for free information from the Stem Cell Research Foundation. That's 1-877-842-3442.
Following the tragic events of September 11th, there have been hundreds of violent attacks against innocent Americans.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
Remember, please stop the hate.
We're stronger when we are united.
Remember what that flag you're waving stands for.
One nation under God.
Indivisible.
With liberty
and justice
for all.
In America, there's either room for everyone, or it's not America. Don't pick the wrong fight.
Let's keep America land of the free.
Stop the hate.
Planning a home renovation? Put this at the top of your to-do list. Because after 10 years, none of you are protected against tetanus and another potentially fatal disease, diphtheria. A minor injury, such as a cut or a scrape, can put you at risk for a tetanus infection. And while safety gear offers some protection, an up-to-date vaccination called the TD Booster is the best insurance against tetanus. So get the TD Booster. If it's been 10, do it again.
to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. and the United States as we look around the globe in 143 different nations looking for the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products that are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And one of those conveniences that we have, of course, are the automobile, the pickups, the other vehicles that make life easier here and abroad. And so what are we going to be doing and what are we going to be using as we move through the 21st century? We have someone representing General Motors. This is Monica Murphy, who is the manager of the General Motors Advanced Technology Demonstration Programs. And we actually have some vehicles with us, Monica. We're going to go out and look at those in our next segment. But we have the Chevy Volt, and then we also have the Equinox, which is the fuel cell. So it's exciting what's going on.
It is, and thank you for having us today, Dr. Sam. We really appreciate the chance to be able to bring these vehicles into the studio here today and show them off a bit.
Well, I told people that we met when we were down at the Metropolitan Washington, the Council of Governments, and how you brought the vehicles out, and we're actually demonstrating these. So people have been bugging me now for weeks saying, hey, you got to get those on camera, and so here you are.
Yes, we always like to say the cars are the stars. For sure.
Absolutely, more than just us talking, but in this segment we really want to talk about General Motors and what it's doing and how it's moving forward, and it's just the fantastic work of actually having people like you out there showing these new vehicles as we move through the 21st century. Why does General Motors investing so much money and so much time in these alternative fuel vehicles?
Hey, great question. And you know, as we look across the globe, and we know that there are many emerging countries today, including the U.S., with vehicles and places like India, Brazil, China that are driving for the very first time, we know that eventually the supply of petroleum and fossil fuels is going to go away. So we've got to begin to think about other technologies, and we're really moving at General Motors towards electrification of the automobile. That's a big word, but essentially it means that we know electricity is the best option for propelling vehicles in the future. The two vehicles that we have outside today basically have the same electric propulsion system in them. There are two different variables, and we'll talk about those
and we're going to bring in a feed. I think we have that right behind us right now. We're looking at the Volt, so we'll just continue right along. Yes. And we have our trusted cameraman out there, and we're just going to let him do whatever he wants to do and show off the vehicle.
That's good, and we can talk even a little bit more up close when we go outside, but you know, the electric motor propulsion system is the same in both vehicles. What's happening in the Chevy Equinox fuel cell, well, let me start with the Chevy Volt since it's up front here. The Chevy Volt has a lithium-ion battery that actually feeds that electric motor and depletes as we drive. And then we have the beauty of a backup range-extending generator to make electricity when we deplete that battery. So we've set the Volt up to be an electric plug-in vehicle, but with a caveat: when we can't find the infrastructure to physically plug the vehicle in, we can use the onboard generator to make that electricity.
And I think this is really the distinction that you've been making, Monica, that it's a backup engine, but actually what you're doing is you're producing electricity which goes back in. So most people actually drive less than 40 miles a day anyway to work and make their stops and all that. So if they actually charge up overnight when the fees are less, then it really is a very inexpensive way to drive.
Yep, actually if you charge off-peak, you're probably talking about $1.50 a day on average for most people to charge the vehicle.
That's less than a gallon of gasoline.
It is, and most of the owners that have bought our Volts have told us that they're making on average one trip to a gas station per month, and they're driving about 900 miles per fill-up, and a fill-up is 9 gallons of gas, so it's a very small amount. So people have really found ways to charge their battery.
Well, I think there's also, too, you and I were talking about this when we were looking at the automobiles, where people actually are having these little contests now to see, you know, they could get to 60 miles and then to 75.
Hypermiling.
Exactly, and 100 miles, you know, on a charge.
Yes.
And it's amazing what people are doing and actually are just having fun doing that. And so there's many ideas, I understand, because you have customer surveys where you're constantly bringing these ideas back into GM to involve them into developing the next generation of these vehicles.
That's correct. And certain simple techniques that we can all do are things like driving 50, 55, the speed limit, keeping tires inflated properly. All these things when you're driving a Chevy Volt become very important in helping you get an extra mile or two of range out of that battery. So yes, we're learning a lot from the consumers that are using the Volt on a daily basis.
Well, you know, the whole thing about this, Monica, what you're doing is you're the face of General Motors. You're into the public, you know, look at the cities, the state level, and you're engaging people in all this. But what you're trying to do, as I understand, is really help them to understand how to better use the vehicles they have, whether it's in one of your vehicles or any vehicle.
That's exactly it. And we have, you know, across our whole GM portfolio, more than just the Chevy Volt and the Chevy Equinox. We have very efficient internal combustion engines that can now get 40 to 50 miles per gallon. So regardless of whether it is a General Motors vehicle or another make of vehicle, you can certainly do some easy techniques to improve fuel economy in whatever you're driving.
Well, you're really focused on the Mid-Atlantic states, but General Motors, of course, is global, and it's in over 140 countries, as I understand it. You're manufacturing in a great many countries, and so what you're doing is you're actually using the ideas from Australia, from China, from different countries in Europe to incorporate, so you're actually, it's a world vehicle that's being evolved here.
It's a global vehicle platform, and a now company, so absolutely.
Now, as you're reaching out and you're involving, we were to have one of your colleagues here that's you know, working with the federal government and the local governments. How do you, working with the politicians, do you feel like we can move forward and actually accelerate this process so we get away from imported crude and we're actually using more and more as far as domestically produced fuels, whether it's electricity, natural gas, or others?
Right, and I think it'll be great if Joe Guzzo can come on at a later time and talk to you about some of the specifics that they're working on. But from my level, what we'd like to do is to get our legislators behind the wheel of these vehicles, help them touch and feel and really understand what these vehicles are. And sometimes it's just a matter of grassroots understanding, and understanding that they do use less petroleum or no petroleum, and they do reduce emissions or have no emissions. So that's my part of the puzzle, and to helping our public policy people and our legislators understand that portion. And then Joe kind of takes it from there and goes further in asking for the actual legislations that we're looking to have happen to be able to bring these vehicles to market.
Well, this is one thing about electricity. That is all generated within the borders of the United States. I guess we do probably share some things with our neighbor to the north, Canada. But at the same time, it really is important that we look more at the engineering and the design. And what you're doing as far as going out and doing these demonstrations, how are you looking at, how do you, I guess it's almost like tweaking, but sometimes maybe there's major designs that are going on these vehicles. How long does it take to incorporate this kind of R&D, research and development, in this?
It's actually very quick, and I'll speak specifically about the fuel cell, where we ran about a 3-year project called Project Driveway. It was a market test where we put consumers behind the wheel of the Chevy Equinox fuel cell. They gave us feedback immediately on things they liked and disliked, and we went right back and changed it and tweaked it. Some of it through software and vehicle updates. Some of it's more, you know, hardware driven and actual component driven, and it takes time and generations of improvements to do that. But we're responsive, and we're doing these demonstration programs early to make those changes and to get that consumer feedback. So it is important we do it quickly.
Looking at General Motors itself, it's you know, it's had its trials and tribulations there for a number of years. It's actually reasserted itself, and moving forward, what do you see as far as what you're hearing among the public, since you're actually out there and touching the public on a day-to-day basis, as far as how they feel about the company, but you know, transcending beyond that, how the American motor car is again going out and reaching into the public and making it feel that they're part of the society?
Yes, I think the public response to the Volt has been a real telltale sign of that, and the fact that we've sold 20,000 Volts since the vehicle launched in November of 10. People just love it. They see it as the new General Motors. It's a vehicle that people that maybe never bought a General Motors product in the past are now coming out and buying for the very first time. So it has, that vehicle solely alone has changed many people's perceptions of General Motors.
And you're starting to see the emblem more and more.
The Chevy bow tie.
We're around Washington, D.C., and you're seeing more and more on the roads there. But looking at the public and as far as the fuel side of this, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, how much do you see that as part of on the minds of the public as well as the cost of energy itself?
You know, I think people are short-sighted and they look at the price at the gas pump. That is kind of top of mind for everybody. And I think, you know, after they get a vehicle like this and they realize that they are saving a lot of gas, then they start to ask other questions about what is coming out of my tailpipe, or what can I do to be more efficient in my home or in my workplace. But I would say that it's probably more about the price of the fuel and eliminating the fuel for most people, and maybe the emissions as a secondary thought that they have.
Well, looking at the work that you're doing, and we're going to talk about these vehicles in detail once we move out there, but looking at it, you're really in a public education type of role, and I don't know if you see yourself as a teacher or not, but you know, it's a very important role that you're playing as far as, again, not just for General Motors and the vehicles, but this whole notion of how we incorporate the idea of saving the planet, reducing a dependency on imported fuels. How do you see over the next 5-10 years and the role that you have where more and more of this as far as the future is going to be incorporated into what you're doing?
Right. I see it as a continual and ongoing educational process, and you described it very well. That's exactly what it is. From grassroots to Capitol Hill, we do it all in helping people get behind the wheel and understanding the technology. And I don't think that's going to change, because I think we're going to see a lot more emerging technologies come down the pike. We've got some in the works, and you know, I can't speak about those quite yet, but you know, it'll continue on. Keeping the public educated about what's coming is going to be very important.
Now, do you have an opportunity to talk with others just like yourself, you know, the manager of these demonstrations, say in Australia, China, and other places, that you can share back and forth as far as ideas and how to reach the public?
We can, absolutely, and I'm very close to my U.S. colleagues. I've got colleagues in New York and California as well, so we do soundboard off each other quite a bit.
And so there's much going on as far as mainstreaming this whole idea and what you're doing as far as reaching out. We only have just a few seconds left. What would you like to leave with our domestic and international viewers about the future of the automobile of alternative fuel vehicles?
I would like to say that, you know, we kind of know at this stage of the game there isn't one silver bullet that's going to solve the foreign oil dependency problem or reduce emissions. And we are working on a variety of vehicles within our platform. We call it gas-friendly to gas-free, from very efficient internal combustion engines all the way up to the fuel cell vehicle. We believe that there's a vehicle for everyone and an application for everyone, all moving closer to electrification.
Well, I'd just like to say it's really great having you with us, and this is Monica Murphy who's sitting with me, and we're going to be together as we go out to look at these fantastic vehicles as we create the Emerald Planet.
Things you can do to catch up.
Oh, that is good news.
Like getting out from underneath past debt. And don't get wrapped up with high-interest credit cards.
Get you some eyes.
Be diversified with your investments. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Your financial goals are not out of reach. The choice is clear. For a happy ending, choose to save.
Everyone with alcohol and drug addiction is in the same boat. With treatment, you can find solid ground. For drug and alcohol information and treatment referral for you or someone you know, call 1-800-662-HELP.
Dude, are you sure you want this tattoo? Because just do it.
Some mistakes in life are permanent. Like hearing loss.
No.
Learn how to protect your...
Okay.
you can take to protect yourself against it. For more information on how you can prevent heart disease, contact your local American Heart Association or visit their website at www.americanheart.org.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr. Sam.
Oh, well, so much for that idea. Ready? Hello, I'm Dr. Sam Hancock, Emerald Planet here in Washington, D.C. in the United States. Coming to you, sitting between two fantastic alternative fuel vehicles. One is a Chevrolet Volt, the other is the Equinox, which is a hydrogen fuel cell. And what we're doing is we're looking at various ways that we can bring information to our viewing audiences, both here and abroad, about what is taking us through the 21st century, because we will soon have 9 billion souls on the planet. How are we going to take care of them, to transport, to feed, to fuel, and to clothe? And so we have someone with us. We have Monica Murphy, who is the manager of General Motors. This is the Advanced Technology Demonstration Programs. And Monica, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us. It's exciting to be here with the vehicles
today.
today.
I must say, this is the first time I had a chance to get out in the sun and actually do one of these interviews. We've had a number of these, as you know. But, you know, it's really important that we actually show and demonstrate what is the new vehicles for the future.
Absolutely. Can we get up and take a look under the hood of the Equinox?
Absolutely. Let's do that.
So as we look under the hood, we can say that we have 90% less moving parts, and it looks like it.
Well, I think this is just amazing, Monica, because you look at this, it's like, you know, engraved monograms of General Motors. It says fuel cell, and I can't see much else.
No, we've taken away the engine, the transmission, literally 90% of the moving parts. So essentially what we have here are polymer membranes, about 400 of them stacked up on top of each other, encased in this aluminum box. And we're making electricity by mixing the hydrogen fuel on board with oxygen over a platinum catalyst, and we're sending that electricity to an electric motor. It allows us to drive electrically without a beat. And water vapor coming out as exhaust.
Now, looking at this whole thing, we're talking about 90% less moving parts, which is absolutely important in all this, because the whole thing about moving forward in the 21st century is we want to use less natural resources. We want to be more efficient as far as what we're actually producing. So it looks like with the Equinox and the other technologies that GM's developing, is that you're really allowing to use, it's a minimalist perspective as far as where we're going to the future.
Yes, absolutely, and modular replacement to some extent as well. And what that translates to a consumer or end user is, you know, less potential for things to go wrong, less maintenance, just a vehicle you can get in and drive and not worry about, all while reducing petroleum or eliminating petroleum and having zero greenhouse gas emissions.
Now, looking at this vehicle, what's the mileage as far as fueling? I guess that's the term we have to use as far as the vehicle is concerned. And the fact is, it really is hydrogen that's going in to actually propel this vehicle.
We would literally pull up to a hydrogen station, fill 3 vessels on board with 4 kilograms of hydrogen. That's like 4 gallons of gasoline. And we would average about 200 miles per fill up in this application. And we're limited to 200 miles by the size of the tanks that we've put in this. But that process is very quick. It can take as little as 3 minutes to fill up. So unlike the Volt, where we would wait for a vehicle battery to charge, we're able to pull up much like we do with our gasoline vehicles and fill with hydrogen.
Now, looking at the hydrogen, I know this is something that General Motors is investing millions in on this. I've attended a number of seminars. You hear people saying, we're already using it, it's out there, it's available to the public. Other people say, hey, it's going to be 50 years before it's viable. So where's the middle ground in all that?
Right. Well, we do believe that we could have limited commercialization of fuel cells by 2016. And further, by 2020 or 2025, we could probably have widespread commercialization, but it is going to be the infrastructure or the hydrogen fueling stations that are going to drive where we can deploy these types of vehicles. We look at states like Hawaii right now, which is really building an all-encompassing hydrogen infrastructure where they're running fuel cell vehicles, and some of them are ours. You know, that's the first example that it can be done.
Well, that's the whole thing about it, Monica, is working General Motors, but working with the government, both local, state, federal, and then as well as the other businesses out there to develop the infrastructure. Infrastructure is really what drove the automobile at the end of World War II, and we're really back to that same start point as far as we need the infrastructure to move forward.
Absolutely, and it is going to be a collaboration between automakers and government and suppliers and just a whole host of entities to really commit and to bring this technology forward.
Now, looking at the infrastructure and the needs for that, what do you think as far as the public that you're meeting through these demonstration units as you're out all over the Mid-Atlantic region? What are they telling you as far as how do we get involved and how do we move this forward as far as getting the proper infrastructure?
Most people that have had a loan of this vehicle come back and ask us, what can we do to help get this here? And I always tell them to go back to their local congressman or representative or legislator and to ask, where is our hydrogen station in our local city, town, you know, or closest place I travel type of thing. So it really is just a voice, all of us being a voice, and kind of asking for what we want.
Well, looking at this is a very nice, this is an SUV vehicle. I love the color combination that you have as far as the fuel cell is concerned. Why don't we move over to the Volt and let's talk about that and what we're actually looking at here as far as the electricity, but also the extended range nature of this vehicle.
Yep, the way we've set the vehicle up is we have a T-shaped battery that literally runs right through the center of the vehicle with the horizontal portion of the T there in the back of the cargo area. That battery, when charged, will allow us to travel up to 50 miles. As we drive and deplete that battery, we then have an option of continuing to drive seamlessly and letting an extended range generator come on to make our electricity, or to stop and to find a plug like we've done here today to charge the battery back up and to wait for that charging process to happen. But the beauty of the Volt is we say no range anxiety, because if you decide you don't want to stop and charge or you can't find a place to charge, you can keep driving with that onboard extended range generator.
Well, looking at the extended range generator, I know you avoid the whole notion of engine and that whole thing. Tell us the philosophy behind that, because it really is, it's not a euphemism, it really is very important to the core of what this vehicle is all about and where you're going in the future as we move through the 21st century.
Right. It's important to understand, we do call it our Voltec propulsion system. It includes the onboard chargers and generators and the electric motor. Basically, this engine generator that sits here is a very small four-cylinder 80 horsepower engine generator that comes on, runs steady RPMs, and does nothing but make electricity. And then feeds that electricity to the electric motor. So it's not driving the wheels, and it's not going back and forth between a battery and engine generator like a hybrid.
Yeah, so it really is not something we're just avoiding the issue. The fact is this a whole new concept.
Yes.
Now, looking at this, and then of course we had the Equinox over here, which is the hydrogen fuel cell. Looking at that, how is General Motors addressing this as far as looking at the future and trying to design new vehicles that's going to meet this need? Because we're going to have 2 billion more people on the globe, you know, within a few short years.
Yes, it is a multifaceted problem, but like I had mentioned in the earlier segment, we really do believe that it is a gas-friendly to gas-free portfolio, and we're not going to flip a light switch and everybody be on an electric vehicle like this tomorrow or be filling with hydrogen tomorrow. It's going to take time and years of vehicle turnovers to get there. So we are trying to produce vehicles that really work for every application and reduce petroleum and eliminate emissions in every type of application that we have. Eventually we know that one will rise to the top, whether it be a hydrogen fuel cell or an electric plug-in or an eco model. Something will rise to the top is probably the vehicle that will be of choice, you know, years and years to come.
Looking at going back to the old horse-drawn days of stable horses, you got it?
Yeah.
Is the whole thing is what kind of stable of cars do you see the coming on? Because I know you have 4 or 5 various alternatives right now, but actually there's probably more alternatives that are actually being developed as we stand here talking about it right now.
Across our portfolio, we can start with just the internal combustion engine. It has had so many improvements over the last 40 or 50 years that today it's as efficient as a hybrid vehicle, or maybe even an electric vehicle like this. But we're also working on CNG vehicles, compressed natural gas, and biofuels, and LPG vehicles, and complete
liquid natural gas.
Yeah, exactly. Complete battery electric vehicles with no backup generator, and then the hydrogen fuel cell, and some others that are probably yet to come. But really working diligently to see what might be that actual solution in the end.
Well, I know one of the things that you're doing as far as your demonstration unit, you really are, and we talked about this earlier, you're looking to the public to provide the feedback. There are many people very eager to be involved in this. They're actually spending good money to be part of this whole movement as we move through the 21st century. What would you like to see from them to help to not only just perfect these, but actually to generate new ideas, new technologies as we move forward?
I think the feedback that we're getting from, even as an example, our current Volt owners, they're telling us today what's working and what's not working with the car, and that live, actual feedback from people that are using the product, the end user, has really helped us go back to the drawing board and to make these improvements for future generations. We have announced that, the Voltec propulsion system will go into another vehicle, the Cadillac ELR. We haven't announced the timing or that type of thing, but those types of improvements help us for future product development.
Yeah, looking at that now, as far as the elected officials, local, state, federal level, what do they really need to be thinking about, and how do they need to become engaged, not just because it's General Motors, but across the board as far as all the manufacturing concerns and the research and development institutes as far as battery, new fuel designs, composites, as far as the production of the automobiles? How do they need to get involved and really help the American public to have transportation as we move forward?
Right. I mean, I think just starting at a very basic grassroots level is helping them understand the difference in the technologies and maybe the limitations and the infrastructure needed for each of the different technologies, because I think sometimes we have a tendency to group everything under the hybrid logo or tag, and these vehicles are very different. And you have to really understand what each of them are and what each manufacturer is working towards to be able to know what type of infrastructure or what's going to be needed. And legislators can really help get involved and to understand what each automaker is working on to be able to help us with the appropriate.
Well, we only have about 30 seconds left to get into this. If you're talking to the elected officials and the public, what do you see as far as the Volt, the Equinox, and all the alternative fueled vehicles for the next, say, 5-10 years?
Right. I would say that we're moving towards electrification, pure electrification, which is electric motor propulsion. And we need the most help with infrastructure, whether it be plug-in infrastructure with a vehicle like the Chevy Volt, electric plug-in infrastructure, or hydrogen fueling stations or CNG stations. It's all about infrastructure.
Well, the whole thing about infrastructure is very, very important. We have 30 seconds. Monica Murphy, who is the manager of General Motors as far as advanced technology demonstration programs. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for allowing us to see these beautiful vehicles and what is actually here now, not just what is going to be coming in the future. And we look forward to working with you in the future as we create the Emerald Planet.
Listen to smoke before you give it a try. Only you. Don't play with matches. Don't play with fire. Cause there's nothing very funny about nothing very nice on a homeless mind. So if a gorgeous force is what you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire. Yeah.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Fire!
Why don't you just wash your car at home? When I wash my car, everything runs down the street and down into the storm drains. With all the chemicals in the soaps and waxes, the last thing I want to do is poison my own drinking water. At least here, it's all contained and recycled on site. That's why I also take my car in for oil changes instead of doing it myself. I might take a chance on spilling stuff. You know what the best part is?
What?
More time to kick back and watch the game.
How far would you go to protect the planet?
I want you to build an ark.
Here we go. Okay, that's good. Oh, okay. Ow!
Maybe there's another way.
People, the flood is imminent!
Is it too much to ask for a little precipitation?
Go to fightglobalwarming.com to find out what you and your community can do to reduce global warming pollution.
Somewhere around the world, there are men and women of the armed forces risking their lives, helping rebuild communities after natural disasters, collecting toys for needy children, tutoring kids in school. These are your sons and daughters who work to keep us safe, secure, and free. Dedicated men and women who put their country first.
We're back to the Inside Scoop Emerald Planet. Here again, your host, Dr.
Hello and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in the United States, looking at the 1,000 best practices, the technologies, the services, and the products as we move through the 21st century. We're looking at 143 nations, looking for how they can actually contribute to move from 7 billion to 9 billion people by 2050. And what are we going to be able to do to actually transport all these people and provide the infrastructure that's needed, and at the same time to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions? There's a number of ideas. There are many governmental organizations as well as private business that are investing billions into attempting to solve this issue. And we have one company that's being represented by Steve Arabia, who is the Director of External Affairs of NRG Energy, the green energy company. And Stephen's coming to us by telephone. Steve, are you here?
I am, Sam. Good to be with you.
Oh, glad to have you here. And I just want to say welcome. And I just think it's exciting. Ever since I met you at the Metropolitan Washington and the Council of Governments, I've been really intrigued by NRG Energy. Tell us a little bit about the company, and then we're going to get into the EVGO organization that you actually represent and it's spreading throughout the United States.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Again, appreciate you having me on your show. I'm delighted to be on with you. So NRG Energy, we are an energy company. We have a variety of parts to our company, I like to say. We are both a wholesale distributor of electrical power. We own and operate power plants throughout the United States. We are also a competitive retail supplier. In other words, we provide energy choices to customers in those states in which electricity choice has been approved. So we have a very aggressive retail arm of our company, including some, I think all of our retail companies. We have Energy Plus, Reliant, and Green Mountain Energy. All of them, I believe, offer green products, and of course Green Mountain Energy offers a 100% green electricity choice for consumers. So as part of the our view of things going forward, we did get into the electric vehicle charging business a couple of years ago, and that's what that's how you and I met at COG. It's a very exciting new line of business.
Well, it's really exciting, and looking at the logo that you have here for the EVGO portion of the company, which I know that you're very intimately involved with. It's interesting as far as the coloration is concerned, but this really represents a green philosophy and green energy that your company is truly focused on as you go around the United States to provide the infrastructure. Tell us a little bit about this investment in the infrastructure as far as the charging stations for the electrics, hybrids, automobiles.
Okay, we're happy to do so, Sam. You know, I would say we call our electric vehicle services business EVGO. And we did launch EVGO in Houston, and we've since moved to Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we're also launching in California and soon in the Washington, D.C., Northern Virginia, Baltimore region. So EVgo, the proposition for EVgo is as follows. We try to create a really, we call it, very deep ecosystem in the metropolitan areas in which we operate. And we do that by providing the comforts and the conveniences that EV consumers really need and want so that they can operate their vehicles and have the confidence that they can use their electric vehicle pretty much the way they would use a gasoline-powered vehicle. And we do this by offering them charging solutions for the home, for the workplace, and for in the public arena as well. And together, these three elements create this ecosystem, and we believe is something that the EV consumer, well, it's demonstrated really in Houston and Dallas-Fort Worth. This is something the EV consumer really has taken to, and I think we've hit on something where the consumer can buy an electric vehicle. And if they're in a location in which EVgo operates, if they choose to join and subscribe with us, they know they can have the range confidence. They can drive their car and know that they'll never be very far from a charging station, and know when they get home, they can charge up at home at the charger that we will install at the home at no upfront cost to the consumer. And they're free then. They're free to go and use their EV to the full extent of its capabilities.
Well, I think that's exciting. And looking at this chart here, it says electricity versus gasoline. And as far as electric being the lowest of the total cost of ownership, one of the things that you hear from the media and the general public is that it's more expensive and it takes a long time for a payback. But in our conversations, you're saying that's not really true. And if you look at it in total, all the costs that are involved in the investment, actually electric really is the way to go. And we have this chart here, Steve. I don't know if you can see it or not, but if you could explain that to us as far as this electricity versus gasoline and what this really means to those that are viewing here and abroad.
Well, I don't know if I'm looking at the same chart that you are, but I will tell you this. I think there have been a number of studies have done and have, say, taken gasoline at $3 a gallon and then did an analysis of the cost of ownership of a vehicle. So it's the cost of buying it and then maintaining it over a 3 or 5 year period. And an all-electric vehicle compares very well and has a lower cost of ownership typically than a gasoline power car, because you're not going in for oil changes, all the things that you would do with a typical automobile, you're not doing. And then the cost to quote fuel it is much less than gasoline. So it's a consumer education issue, and I think you have a lot of partners involved in trying to move this industry forward. The federal government, a lot of state governments are bringing down the cost of the vehicles themselves through tax credits and rebates and other tax incentives. And then with a subscription service that EVgo offers, again, we think it's very cost effective to the consumer because there's no upfront cost. It's a 3-year subscription, but you don't have to, we come in and put the charger in your home. We maintain it over the period of the subscription, and there's no upfront cost. And that could cost $2,500 in a lot of places to have a level 2 charger installed at the home. So I think together, the private sector, working on the infrastructure, and some of the state, local, and federal government issues on the cost of the vehicle are combining to really drive down these costs.
I think the whole thing about it, Steve, is that most people don't really understand the total cost of their automobiles. We have this chart here about even in what's called the low gasoline cost days, and yet the electric car is still competitive, maybe even less expensive, because again, people don't realize about the number of parts you have in internal combustion engines, how they break down, need to be repaired every so many years. the oil, antifreeze, all these other things that go into the general maintenance and also just the pollution of the environment through many of these harsh chemicals that are used in internal combustion engines, you don't really have in particularly your all-electric and some of your hybrid automobiles. Yeah, that is true. And it's also, I think, important to note that the price of electricity over time and projected going forward is a lot more stable typically than the price of gasoline. So as gasoline, as we all know, fluctuates with international events and other things, the price of electricity, by and large, doesn't move that much. So that's another, I think, selling point, I would say, for moving towards the electric vehicle, as well as you could look at sort of a global perspective as well, and lessening our use of oil, foreign oil. I think that plays a part in a lot of folks' decisions as well. Well, I think this is something that most people are looking around the globe and finding that much of the oil, natural gas are coming out of countries that are very unstable, and many are very unsavory regimes that are actually putting that out there. And so it really compels people to look seriously at the electric and alternative fueled vehicles. But looking at what is the business plan as far as EV go for the entire country and rolling out this new infrastructure as far as the charging stations? Okay, well, as I said, we're in Houston, Dallas, Dallas-Fort Worth right now. We're going to be expanding into California, and then we're also going to expand into the Northern Virginia, Washington, D.C., and metropolitan area up into Baltimore. Well, probably early 2013 is where we expect. We're actually doing a lot of work right now and sort of pre-installing some of the infrastructure, some of the what we call freedom stations. That these are these fast charging stations that we'll be installing along commuter thoroughfares and at retail locations where people can come in and in 15 minutes get 50 miles additional charge on their car, which is really the way to go. That's, of course, as you probably know, a lot different than as we say, a level 2 charger, which could take hours and may be fine for your home for overnight charging. But people don't have hours to spend when they're commuting or going to the store. So our freedom stations address that by we put in these fast chargers, and so you come in and you go to the Walgreens and get your prescription and come out, and you've got 30 more miles to charge on your car. You go to a Cracker Barrel, and these are partners of ours, and you have a meal, and you come out, and you have well over 50 miles of charge in your vehicle. So that's the key, we think, to increasing and broadening the folks' comfort level with electric vehicles. So we're very excited. Those are good markets, and we hope to. And we're going to need to leave you, Steve, and thank you for being with us as we create the Emerald Planet.